Nottingham Forest, the team that everyone wrote off in their pre-season predictions, are 5th in the Premier League. They've beaten Liverpool at Anfield, drawn to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and they're thriving under Nuno Espirito Santo's coaching. So let's deep dive into why this system is causing havoc for Premier League teams, and can they sustain this form for the rest of the Premier League season? And the first thing we have to start off with is the style of defence. And although it's not identical, they're following Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid in sitting deep and limiting high-value chances against their team. Their non-penalty XG against for shots and the non-penalty shot conversion against are one of the best in the Premier League. They concede a low level of XG against, and the shot conversion is quite low from the opposition as well. And it's set up in a fairly standard 4-4-2 system with Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White leading the press. But I'll be hesitant to even call it a press. If you look at the passes allowed per defensive action, they allow up to 14 passes before they engage with the opposition. And not only that, they allow the joint most crosses into the box than anyone in the Premier League. And the aim of this is to draw the opposition out, make them commit numbers forward, and then counter-attack them in the spaces that they've left open. And there are a couple of key changes that have happened this season to their back line. The introduction of Alex Moreno, who's a natural left footer at left back and has been a quality addition from Aston Villa. Ola Aina has moved to the right back spot and he's progressed fantastically this season. Then you have the introduction of Nikola Milenkovic, who has been outstanding over the course of the season so far. Now you would think, given his height, that he's probably just there to win the aerial duels, which they struggled with last season. And you can see from the stats that he wins up to 65% of his aerial duels, which is one of the highest of all the squad this season. But Milenkovic is so much more than that. And if you check my video from earlier on in the season, when I was making my predictions for the most exciting signing from each club, you can see that I chose Milenkovic for Nottingham Forest. And Milenkovic does all the basics of defending really, really well as being comfortable on the ball. And his general positioning and anticipation in the game, from crosses and in general play, are of a top level. And I'll show you 3 examples from this season where his defensive ability shines through. In the game against Crystal Palace, the ball was played over the top by Will Hughes, and Nketiah and Milenkovic get into a race for the ball. And this is where he uses that physicality just to bump Nketiah under the ball. But that's not the most impressive bit. As he receives the ball, he receives pressure from the Crystal Palace player, and he shapes the player pass to Ola Aina, number 34, but then he just shifts it back onto his left foot and then maneuvers beyond the sort of pressure on the ball and plays it out wide to Ola Aina. And it's not just these loose situations where he's able to use his physicality, it's these situations from crosses where he positions himself really well at the near post. And you can see from this example against Chelsea, the ball gets played down the left side for Cucurella's run, and this is where the danger sort of gets spotted by Milenkovic straight away, and he already gets on the run, tries to stay ahead of Nicholas Jackson before his run even starts. As Cucurella plays the ball in, he's in a great position at that near post and clears it out for a corner. And the last example, also against Chelsea, is what I love from centre-backs. It's when they're outnumbered or they have more than one decision to make and they make the correct decision. Cucurella makes a nice little run in behind Ola Aina, and Sancho finds him really well, and that's where you have to see as a defender from Milenkovic. He already has Nicholas Jackson that he's marking, but he spots the greater danger of Cucurella being able to maybe have a first-time shot on goal or even pull it across the box for a cross. So he steps away from his position, gets in the line of the ball, and just physically pushes Cucurella away from danger. And it forces Chelsea to have to recycle the ball all the way outside to the edge of the box. And Murillo and Milenkovic have built a great partnership at the back. They have that yin and yang quality, the sort of Ferdinand Vidic, where one of them is the technical player, covers in behind, has the pace, makes the last-ditch clearances, versus, the man marker, the aggressive player, wins his aerial duels, and they have a great sort of partnership that's built over the course of this season. And if you look at the player radars, you can see that Murillo's technical ability stands out. He's far and above Milenkovic in the progressive passes, progressive carries, and he's one of the best out of all centre-backs in the Premier League for successful take-ons. But Milenkovic shines through in his aerial duels won and the percentage of dribblers that he's tackled. And from a team perspective, you can see that this is no fluke. If you look at the XG against and the number of goals that they conceded this season, it's fairly identical. They conceded 10 goals this season and the XG against is 11.2. So they've sort of, overperformed by over a goal this season. And that shows that it's sustainable. And they've built a great defensive platform to continue their success. And a quick mention to another area that they've improved upon this season, and that's their goals conceded from set pieces. And I'm not going to deep dive into it because it's been mentioned everywhere, but they conceded 22 goals from set pieces last season, and they've only conceded 2 goals from set pieces this season. And although their defence has been great this season, their expected goals against from last season was 5th in the Premier League. So they've improved, but they haven't improved as much as they have done in the attacking sense of the game. So what is their attacking style of play? Well, it's linked to the defensive style of play. And as I said before, they have a deep defensive line. They don't really press high up the pitch. And that shows in their possession statistics. This season, they have averaged 42.1% possession against their opposition, and they have the second lowest passes attempted all season. And that's because their main focus is on that counter-attack and being fast and direct once they win the ball. And you can see that from the Opta statistics for team style of play. If you look at the sort of speed at which they move upfield versus the number of passes that they use in each sequence of play, they're one of the top teams in that fast and direct style of play. And the best example of this is their goal against Liverpool at Anfield this season. And it links the defensive side of the game to the attacking side of the game. Milenkovic wins the ball from Darwin Núñez on the edge of the box. But even here, you can see that's Chris Wood tracking the run back into the box. And they have all 10 outfield players in their own half, and so deep in their own half as well. And the ball gets played to Morgan Gibbs-White with his back to goal, and he plays a lovely ball around the corner to Elanga, who's moving forward on the counter as well. And as that ball's played around the corner, it leaves a lot of space for Elanga to attack, carry the ball forward and, move his team up the field. But not only is he happy to do that, he sees Callum Hudson-Odoi on the other side, and he plays an audacious ball in between the back line, curled perfectly into the path of Hudson-Odoi. Hudson-Odoi cutting on his right foot is one of the key traits that I've seen from Nottingham Forest this season. And he attacks Bradley, on his weaker side, moves inside and curls a beautiful shot into the bottom right-hand corner. But it's not just the counter-attacks where they're a threat. They're still able to play the ball through the thirds, but they do it just as directly as they do on the counter-attacks. And as you can see from this example here, they like to space out the opposition and create that kind of direct line into Chris Wood as much as possible. And Morgan Gibbs-White drifts out to that left side, and that creates a gap in between the 2 centre midfielders from Brighton, for Murillo to play a ball directly into Wood. Chris Wood's link-up play is a big factor in their attacking play this season. And you can see what Chris Wood dropping in does. It pulls the centre-back out of position, and you can already see sort of Gibbs-White on the move from his marker, and Wood plays a lovely first-time pass into his running path. And they're not happy there. They're not going to take a touch and just keep it safe. The space has been exposed from the opposition, and Gibbs-White plays a first-time pass directly through to his runner through on goal. And he plays it across, and they score to make it 2-2 against Brighton. And this example shows one of the key traits from Nottingham Forest this season. They don't really like to attack through the middle until the last portion of their play. They love to attack through the wings, and specifically the left wing through Callum Hudson-Odoi, Murillo on that side, Moreno on that side, and Gibbs-White or Elliot Anderson, drifting out to that left-hand side. And you can see from the stats this season, the left side bias is so strong. They're first in the league for attacking down the left side, a whopping 45%. And, they're last in the league for attacking through the middle and the right-hand side. And although Elanga's pace and direct running in behind has been a threat this season, it's Hudson-Odoi's ability to progress the ball at the pitch through his progressive carries, number 1 in the Nottingham Forest squad, and his shot-creating actions that have been number 1 for Nottingham Forest as well. He has the same move over and over again, which we showed against Conor Bradley in the earlier clip, but he attempts to shimmy, move it onto his right foot, and have a shot on goal. So is this sustainable? Nottingham Forest have spent a lot of money, on transfers over the past couple of seasons, but they finally have a settled squad that has stuck. And there have been some impressive signings over the past few windows, such as Milenkovic, Elliot Anderson, Moreno from Aston Villa, and the previous season before that, they brought in Elanga, Wood, Murillo, Hudson-Odoi, Sells, and Aina. These are all playing a major role in their success this season. So over the long term, if they carry on this trend in the transfer market, they can sort of compete for that top half position on a regular basis, especially with a coach like Nuno Espirito Santo. But if we're talking this season and with the current squad they have, there's a couple of areas of concern in terms of whether they can sustain this form. And one of the areas of concern this season is that when they've fallen behind in games, they've only picked up 1 point this season. In the game against Brighton, they fell behind and drew 2-2. but they lost to Fulham at home and Newcastle at home once both teams went ahead. And that comes as a byproduct of their style of play. They like to play deep, don't really press high, and attempt to draw the opposition out so they can hit them on the counter-attack. But if the opposition scores first, then the onus is on Nottingham Forest to take the game to the opposition. And that's where they struggle to break down teams. And the next area of concern is the goals that they scored this season, and specifically how they're sharing it across the team. Chris Wood has scored 8 goals this season, but the next best is Hudson-Odoi on 2 goals, and then they have 5 players on 1 goal. Given all their talent, the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Elanga and Gibbs-White need to increase their goal contributions. If we look at the attacking metrics from this season, we can see that they've scored 15 goals, which has them at 11th place, but the expected goals is 14.2, which has them at 14th place, which means that they're distinctly mid-table when it comes to goal output. And I think one area they can improve is by taking more high-value shots and being a bit more patient in that final third, rather than the long shots that they're currently taking from outside the box. 39% of their shots this season have come from outside the box. Some of them have been that Callum Hudson-Odoi cutting in and shooting, which I don't mind too much. But from some of the clips that I analyse, Murillo and Milenkovic are taking shots from way outside the box, rather than taking time playing the ball through the thirds and trying to create some new crossing opportunities or higher value shots that can hopefully help the team score more goals outside of Chris Wood. But Nottingham Forest fans are probably shouting at the screen saying, this is far beyond our expectations and we're happy to be where we're at. But to maintain this and sort of push for the European places this season, it's such an open league that you have to take the opportunities as and when they come. They have to improve their attacking output and maybe the variety of how they attack over the course of the season. And that's because teams are not surprised anymore. They know how Nottingham Forest are going to set up. They know the areas that they want to attack. And it's already been seen in the game against Newcastle where they struggle to create real high-value chances and struggle to contain Newcastle's counter-attack. But Nottingham Forest have shocked the Premier League this season. And I'm sure all Nottingham Forest fans know that Nuno is the man to guide them into the future. And if you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to check out some of my previous videos, and I'll see you at the next episode of A Game of Two Halves.